What happened? Okay, there we go. So yeah, they highlight a different mathematician or, just a different person from a different background. And I really like that because they kind of go into a little bio about the person and stuff. So that's kind of where this chapter 1 is starting, but we're kind of getting into section 1.1 here. So, when we're talking about logic, a lot of times, of course, we want to think about like, logic, how we would use in English. But logic is actually a mathematical concept that kind of gets used in other areas. So that's kind of where we are starting out with our course here. We will be starting with the logic, as you can see, logical reasoning and problem solving. So these are some of the topics that we will be covering that you can see at the top. As you can see, they have, videos and content from, the people who created the textbook. So you can kind of see some of those, professors kind of going through explanation. I definitely encourage you guys to take a look at some of these videos. So when we talk about logic, we're basically saying it's a study of reasoning. We talk about logical reasoning. Logically, is this making sense? And that's kind of where we will have conflict between, does the sentence make sense in English or not? Because, we all use English kind of to reason things out, but it does not have to make sense as a sentence. It has to make sense in that logical, mathematical reasoning. So the sentence may sound completely wonky. It's okay, because we are not interested in English, right? We're not studying English. We want to know, does it follow those rules of logical reasoning? And can we say, yes, this is a valid argument, or no, it's not a valid argument? So that's kind of where, it kind of gets interesting, because we are so used to thinking in like a grammatical sentence that we're like, no, this doesn't make sense. But mathematically, it actually does make sense. So here we're talking about proposition as a complete sentence that can be given a value of true or false. So again, think about propositions as something that we can say is true or it's false. Like today is Thursday. Is that true or false? Right? We can assign a value to it. Now I say that, I feel like today is going to be a beautiful day. I cannot assign a true or false to it. Because I may feel like it's a beautiful day. You're like, oh my God, it's hot and cruddy. Who wants to be out there in the sun and get all sweaty, right? Because that becomes an opinion. You cannot assign true or false value to it. So that's kind of what they're talking about here. I am reading a math book. Can that be a proposition?
Yes.
Can I assign a true or a false value to it?
Yes.
Yeah, because you're either reading a math book or you're not reading a math book. Math is fun. And yes, math is fun. But can I assign a true or false to it?
No.
No, very good. Do you like turtles? Didn't somebody say they swim with? Was it turtles? Yeah. Do you like turtles? Is that a proposition? Yes, no?
Yes,
Can I assign a true or false value to it?
like to a specific person.
Just to that question, do you like turtles?
Yes, no,
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 It's
oh,
subjective.
because you may like turtles, but I could say, turtles. Because again, it becomes a personal matter, right? It's a very opinion-based statement, so it's not really a true or false. My
Is it
cat?
different because it's not a statement to its question?
That's a good point. Can questions be true or false? Right? All right, let's see how we did here, guys. So the first and second are propositions. The third one and the fourth one are phrases because we cannot assign a true or false value to it. Now, math is fun, may sound like, it's a personal opinion. And I know some of you made that clear to me, you were not a big fan of math. I will not hold that against you. But I mean, we can say, yes, math is fun, or we can say, no, like, I mean, yeah, true or false, we can assign that. But something like you said, it's a question. So does that really get assigned a true or false value to it or not? So as you can see, we call that a phrase, not a proposition. So this will be something to kind of think about. Now, the other thing that we kind of want to use along with these propositions is also about using connector words. So in this case, we can use connector words like and or. We're talking about, arguments can be made up of more than one proposition, right? More than one statement in there. So we're saying those are called premises along with a conclusions. Now, propositions can be negated. So like math is fun, somebody can say math is not fun, right? You're negating it. Or they can be, like I said, combined with connectors like and or. So this is kind of where we start now getting into that reasoning of, okay, now once we start making up these sentences, these arguments, logically, do they make sense? Do they have a good, solid, reasoning behind it? Or is it just random words kind of put together? So we're talking about writing the negation. So we're starting out with negations here. I am reading a math book. How would you negate it?
I'm not reading that.
Very good. I'm not reading a math. Oh my God, why are they going after math is fun? Yes, math is fun. How do we negate it?
It's not.
Same thing, right? Math is not fun. The sky is not green. That's the argument. So how would you negate that? The sky is green, and I know again in English this does not make sense, but technically you can also say the sky is not green. I know. Cars have wheels? Sheesh, thank you. Negate it. Cars have wheels. Cars don't have wheels, right? So you can use the word not, or again, because we, like I said, kind of depend on English, you cannot say cars not have wheels. So cars do not have wheels, right? So that would be your negation. Now, in math, that's basically putting a negative in front of something. That's what a negation is. You're basically putting a negative in front of the original value. So, if you had, let's do this in here. Actually, I can just use annotation. So like this guy over here, I was talking about the sky is not green. Like you said, the sky is green, or, so this not green basically says, if you had something which was just green, let's say, right? And then they're telling us the sky is not green, which means they're already bringing in the negative. Well, if I do the not, you're basically bringing in another negative, right? So two negatives make a positive, and that becomes the sky is green. So logically, we're actually still using math. We're just looking at that more in like sentences instead of symbols, but we will actually be doing symbols later on as well. So that's your negation. Now, negation starts looking a little bit different when we have sentences that have qualifiers in them. So, if you're doing words like all or none, then that sentence formation looks a little different, so its negation looks a little bit different. So all students read this book would actually be negated by saying not all students read this book. Some students don't read this book will actually also be a negation to that same statement. So you can see there's two different ways that we can write this out. So all students read this book is the original statement. To negate it, we're saying not all students, which seems pretty straightforward, right? Not all, when you're saying all, which is the same thing as basically some students, right? Don't read this book. However, the negation for all is not no. You cannot say no students read this book. So those qualifiers actually make a lot of difference based on the sentence you have and what its negation will look like. So the second paragraph, you can see they're talking about no students read this book as being the original statement. So if you're trying to negate no students read this book, it would actually be, oh, forget that these kids do that. The ones at Fort Lupton are just so not sensitive. You can touch it and it doesn't do anything. So we'll need to remember that. So the negation for this guy here, no students read this book, would be a student is reading this book, so just one single, right? Or some students do read this book. So you really have to pay attention to those qualifiers here to try and see what those negations will look like. So let's try and see how we can come up with our own here. So part A, all college students take psychology. How would you negate that? Not all college students take psychology. So yeah, using that first statement we saw. Or the other one would be some college students don't take psychology, right? The other format for that. Okay, very good. Let's talk about dogs are never brown.
Some dogs are brown.
Some dogs are brown. Okay, anybody else want to try something else? So they're saying dogs are never brown. Now you will see there were none of those qualifiers in there, right? No, all, none, some, no. But it's kind of there, but not in an obvious way. Say that again.
Some dogs are brown.
Okay. Does anybody else want to throw in another sentence formation, or we're gonna stick with that for now?
Dogs are sometimes brown.
Dogs are sometimes brown, okay? Alrighty, let's take a look here. So kind of with what you said, but instead of sometimes, they're just saying some dogs are brown, and then they're saying there are brown dogs, which is kind of, again, not using any of the qualifiers, since they are saying dogs are never brown, which means they're saying there's no way possible that a dog would be brown. This one is saying, well, yeah, there can be brown dogs.
Maybe the colored one.
Possible, very much possible. So yeah, for the first one, you can see both of those sentences were fine, like we saw in the example above. So not all college students take psychology, or we can say some college students don't take psychology. So you will actually see, there should be. Oh, maybe it's in a different section. Sorry, like I said, this textbook is kind of new for me, so I'm kind of learning as we go along. This one is talking about if you have multiple negations in a statement. So if you have said like, I can't not go. Same thing, right? Two negatives, make a positive. So you're basically saying, I can't go. So that's kind of what they're talking about here, is what if you have those multiple negations? I don't disagree. Would be the same thing, right? Two negatives. So we're basically saying, yes, I do agree with that. So a double negative is similar to multiplying two negative numbers to give you a positive result. And then, of course, if you put a third negative in there, it becomes that triple negative, which means the negative sign kind of stays. Okay, let's see if we can put this to use. So they're actually also talking about how you can use words like nobody or nothing. You don't see a lot of use for that, but just kind of something to keep in mind that those can also pop up as negations. So it's not just going to be the word not or do not, or, one of those kind of iterations. So you can kind of see that. Let's do number 115 very quickly, and then we'll call it a day. Vote for this measure to repeal the ban on plastic bags. So they're asking us to kind of determine the outcome of a yes vote. So vote for this measure to repeal the ban on plastic bags. What negations are we seeing in there?
Repeal and ban.
Very nice. So what do you think this would be?
Vote to allow then.
Yeah, very nice. Right, because if you're taking two negatives and putting together, we're basically saying bring back plastic bags, right? Essentially, is what's happening here. So this is kind of what I want to talk about a little bit more, is just how those negations can show up. Because, again, math is very simple. We throw symbols in and we know what a negation looks like. But then when you start talking about these logical reasonings in sentences, you kind of have to fall back on that English to help us with the math, right? So this is where we'll pick up, guys. I will open up your homework. I didn't do that today because I was into it. We have time to do and math. So let's be back here on Thursday, and we'll get full on in chapter 1. If you have any questions, I'll be here. Come by, talk to me, and I will see you on Thursday. Have a great day, guys. Thanks, Roberto. I'll see you on Thursday. Hello.
Just want to ask, you should probably got my IEP letters.
Remind me of your name, sweetie.